أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Honor of the Day of Judgment. You alone we worship, and you alone we seek for help. Lead us onto the straight path, the path of those whom you have blessed, not of those who earned your anger, nor of those who have gone astray. Sadaqallah al-Azim.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the first academic session of the round table with Dr. Israr Ahmed. I would say it's a rare occasion which provides us an opportunity for hearing Dr. Israr's thoughts. And it's unique in the sense that you people have come mainly from the West, mainly America, England, and Turkey, though Turkey is not part of the European community. The credit for this goes to Brother Ibrahim Abdurabi, whose brainchild is this. And Dr. Israr Ahmed is working on different lines. He has been to states and to the West several times, and his ideas based on Quran and Hadith are well received. It has an intellectual dimension, but he is an activist. He wants to integrate knowledge with action. He is not a man of cool and detached academic interests. Rather, he is an activist in the real sense of the word. He is my elder brother. The topic of first discourse or presentation is the human personality and two forms of knowledge. I request Dr. Israr Ahmed to please go ahead with his presentation.
أحمده وأصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I praise Allah and send my salutations and blessings to Muhammad, his apostle and prophet. And I take refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. And I begin with the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. And I pray to Him, O Lord, open up my heart, make my task easy for me, remove the knot in my tongue, so that these brothers and sisters can understand easily and fully what I have to say to them. And after that, dear brothers and sisters, from Adam and Eve, Allah's blessing may be on both of them. And may Allah bless all of us and guide us to the straight path. In the very beginning, I must and do thank you from the depths of my heart that you have taken out time from your busy schedules and undertaken a very long and tiresome journey. Actually, if anything good comes out of this exercise, the credit would go to Dr. Abu Dhabi. As the brother has said, it's his brainchild. And if it proves to be an exercise in futility, then the blame will be solely on me. Secondly, I want to profess I am not a scholar in the usual sense of the word. I have never studied social sciences, any of them. What to speak of teaching them? My background education is medical. So I know a little bit of physics and chemistry and zoology and botany. But I have a tall claim also. And that is, I am a humble student of Al-Quran. And because Quran claims to be the guidance for all mankind for all times to come, hence, as a humble student of Quran, I take courage to speak about the guidance in different aspects of human life, individual and collective. Another confession, I am not good at English. I have never lived in any Western country for any length of time. I have been a casual visitor to the United States. And secondly, I had, during an operation on my knee, there was an episode that my heart stopped for some time. So I had a fresh life after that. But that has left my memory impaired. So I have asked brother Dr. Absar to be on my side, not only as a moral support, but also to help me. If he feels I am fumbling for words, so he can help because he knows my ideas and he can very easily assist me. And after that, as it has been told to you, and you must have known it already, my presentation at this time is the human personality and two forms of knowledge. What I have understood from Quran and what I believe is that human beings have a composite existence. There are two beings joined together in a mysterious way. One being is the animal being, which has come out of clay, the crust of the earth. According to the scriptures, Bible, Quran, both, and according to the scientists, biologists. But the other personality, it has come from above, and that is the spiritual existence. Animal existence and spiritual existence. And both of them are absolutely independent of each other. Both of them are full personalities. What we call ruh. And I don't know what should be the proper translation in English, soul or spirit, but I prefer spirit, not soul. Soul includes the life. Our animal existence includes life. It has come from the clay, the crust of the earth, through a very long process of evolution. But the spirits, human spirits, are not from earth or clay or sand. Dust thou art, to dust returnest was not spoken of the soul. It has come from above. Let me say here, according to the Quran, there are two spheres of existence in this universe, independent of each other, but intertwined with each other. Quran calls them the world of command and the world of matter, world of creation. illALLAH al-khalq wal-amr. Amr means command, and khalq is the creation. This amr, in that sphere of amr, things happen immediately, instantly, with the command of God. And the command is kun, be, and it is, it becomes. There's no time element included in it. This is the world of command. And the other world is actually, the word creation should be applied to this second. In Arabic, we have a word ibda', and that means creation ex nihilo, creating something without anything. So that is the word of command. Kun fayakun. Allah says be, and it is, and it becomes. But the other world is the world of creation. Here something is created out of something, not ex nihilo. Man created from clay. The jinns or jinnis created from fire. The angels created from light. So there was something existing before, and from that something has been created. And in this world of creation, time factor is always involved. That is why the scriptures, and here again, I mean Bible as well as Quran, they agree that this universe was created in 6 days. And we don't know the duration of the days of God. Surely they are not the days with which we are accustomed. The days in Quran, we find 1,000 years of hours becomes 1 day for Allah. And there's another verse, 50,000 years of hours go to make a day, the day of judgment. But maybe the cosmic day, the universal day might be very long. We may call them the millenniums. But time is always involved. A seed to grow into a tree needs time. The human embryo to become a full human being needs time. So in the realm of command, there is no time involvement. But in the realm of creation, the material creation, I may call it, time is always involved. Now let me give you a diagrammatic representation. This concept is based on an ayah of the Quran. It is chapter 40th and verse 11. I have written here in Arabic, قالوا ربنا أمتنا سنتين وأحييتنا سنتين فاعترفنا بذنوبنا فهل إلى خروج من سبيل. The people who will be thrown in the hell after the day of judgment, they will pray to Allah, "O our Lord, you put us to death twice, and then you revived us twice. And now we have confessed our sins. So is there any way out from here also?" Very important ayah of the Quran, very important. Although some similar concepts are given in other ayahs also, but this is the most important, central ayah regarding what I am going to say. Starting from this extreme left, creation ex nihilo, in the realm of command, were the spirits of all human beings, much before the creation of this universe, material universe, much before that. This material universe started from the Big Bang. I agree with it. But this period is pre-Big Bang. The command, the big command of God, kun, it took the form of light. Subtle light, without any heat, without any motion. And from this light were created the angels and the human spirits, all human beings from the first Adam till the last son of Adam. These arwah. In hadith we find the words, al-arwahu junudun mujannada. They were like armies, all human beings. The spirits of all human beings were created at that time. And all the angels were created. Still, the time and space complex had not split. Time was not there. You may call it absolute time. No serial time was present at that time. And there was no motion in that light, subtle light, no heat. And from this light were created, as I have told you, all the human spirits as well all the angels. And this is, the bold line. This was our first life, as spirits only, no bodies. But then, during this life, Allah took the covenant from those spirits of human beings. Alastu bi rabbikum? Qalu bala. This is in Quran, chapter 7 and ayah 171. Alastu bi rabbikum? Am I not your Lord? And all of us, all the spirits of all the human beings, from Adam till the last human being who will be there before the end of this world, they said in one voice, why not? You are our Lord. This was the first covenant taken from the spirits of human beings by their Lord and Creator Allah. But then they were put to sleep. This was the first death, put to sleep. We may say, put in some cold storage. And that was the first death that we experienced before coming to this world. And now, after the Big Bang started, the material world. And this Big Bang was another kun, big kun. Here, let me quote from the Gospel according to St. John. In the beginning, there was Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. Whatever has been created is through this word. This word kun, Quran has given us the proper word. Be, and it is. So that was the first creation. But then we were made to sleep or put in some cold storage. In the meantime, this Big Bang, another, big kun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it took the form of small particles, very minute, but very hot, very hot, very hot. And running away from each other with a speed. And from this, Quran tells, the self-conscious creations were the angels and the human spirits. Now, another self-conscious creation, and that is of the jinns or the jinnis, I think you call it. And Quran tells they were created out of fire. That was after the Big Bang of the physicists. Then, to cut a long story short, there were galaxies were formed and planets and stars. And then some planets started to cool down. Our planet Earth cooled down, there was crust, and gases came out of it. And from them, water was created. And there, for thousands of years, there was rain and rain and rain. And because, by shrinking of the crust of the earth, there were mountains, there were deep oceans. And for that stage, Quran says, Kana arshuhu alal ma. The throne of Allah at that time was on water. In this world, there was nothing in this planet except water. And this water then separated from each other due to the shrinking of the crust. There are the mountains and there are the seas and the oceans. And from the interaction of water and clay started the life on this planet. From a single cell to the most evolved Homo sapiens, it might have taken millions of years, yes. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected one Homo sapien. It was the animal of man. Still he was not human. The animal existence is coming from the earth. But then Allah blew into him, into one of the selected people from the Homo sapiens, the spirit which was there waiting in the cold storage, which was asleep. It was revived. And now we have a human being having a body coming from below. In this diagram, this is earth. And this is coming through evolution, the Homo sapien. And then that ruh, that spirit, which was asleep, and Quran says, which was under death, that has been blown into this. And now he becomes man, human being, composed of two distinct entities. Body, or I should say better, animal being, body plus life. Ruh and spirit is not life. Life is there in the dogs, in the cats, all the animals. Even in the leaf of grass, it's living. So life is something else. And that spirit of God, we find it in Quran at two places, very clear terms. Quran says, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. It's chapter 15, ayah 29. And again in chapter 38, ayah 72. Ayah, I mean verse. Actually, I don't like these translations of surah is surah, not chapter. These are not chapters of Quran. The word chapter has its own connotation. It's not applicable to the surahs of Quran. In the same way, the word verse has its own connotation. It's not applicable to the ayat of Quran. But for the English speaking people, we have to use those words. So maybe you find I say sometimes surah and sometimes chapter. So in Surah Al-Hijr 15 and verse 29 and Surah Sad, which is number 38 and the verse 72, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ, Allah had said to the angels before the creation of Adam, when I have completed the creation of this man, Bashar, وَنَفَقْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and then I have blown into him from my own spirit, then you bow down before him in prostration. فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. So the animal of human being, Homo sapiens you may call it, it was an animal, not man. But in Allah astafa Adam wa Nuhan, Allah chose one of that species of Homo sapiens, an individual, and blown into him the spirit. In these two verses, Allah calls my own spirit. But what we mean is the spirits which were very close to Allah, very close. The pre-Big Bang era of this creation. So Allah blew that spirit into it. And what will happen then? Then comes another death. We live here, this is our worldly life, which we mistakenly think that this is the life. This is not the life. This is one phase of our life. And this is the second life. I told you, we had the first life only as spirits. After that, creation ex nihilo. And during that, the covenant was taken from us. وَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى. And then we were put to sleep or put to death. Then we were revived. And there is a hadith which is very important. I have written down in Arabic. This is one of the most authentic ahadith tradition of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In ahadakum yujma'u khalquhu fi batni ummihi. Every one of you, his creation takes the form in the womb. Arba'ina yawman nutfatan. For 40 days it's nutfa, a speck. Summa yakunu alaqatan misla zalik. Then again 40 days as alaqa, something hanging from the wall of the uterus. Summa yakunu mudghatan misla zalik. And then it becomes like a piece of meat which is chewed. So these go to make 40 plus 40 plus 40, 120 days in the womb. After 4 months, Summa yursalul malaku fayanfakhu fihi ruh. And then the angel is sent and he blows into this embryo the spirit, the ruh, which was there in the cold storage. And now he is a human being. Before that, the embryo was living. It was not dead. Even the spermatozoon is not dead. The ovum coming from the mother is not dead. They are living organisms. And for these 20 days, it was living, but it was animal existence only. But then, when this spirit has been blown into it, joined together, we don't know how. Up till now, we don't know how life is attached to our body. What's the point of contact? Life. What is life? It is connected with which organ of ours? We don't know. So this combination of animal being plus the spiritual being, we can't say how it is. But it is there, the two animal being and then the spiritual being. Then what happens at death? What came from the clay goes to the clay. Whether you burn the dead body, incinerate it, or you just bury it, whatever you do, it goes. From where it came, it goes back. But the spirit, and not only the spirit, the essence of the life of this individual, along with that spirit, goes to God. You know, there's a very important ayah of Quran, which we recite whenever something bad, some calamity occurs to us. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to Allah, God. We have come from Him. Who's that we? Not our animal being, but our spiritual existence. Wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And we are going to return to Him. What happened at death? And this is now the second death. I quoted the ayah. Rabbana amatta nasnatain. You put us to death twice. Once when we were spirits only, you put us to death. And then when we were born in this world of matter, along with the body, again after some time you put us to death. And this is the second death. And now will come the day of resurrection. That will be second revival. Amatta nasnatain wa ahyaita nasnatain. You put us to death twice, and then you revived us twice. And after that, now I have given so many lines why. Now the human beings will be separated into different groups, either to hell or heaven. And again here I write to eternity. But I have put a question mark. According to the general and orthodox belief, the hell and heaven both are eternal, 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 never to end. But there have been some scholars. Interestingly, two scholars who are dead against each other, Ibn Arabi and Ibn Taymiyyah, they both think that the hell will come to an end at some time. Very long period, very long period, very long period, but it will come to an end. But the heaven will remain forever and ever and ever. And from among our mystics, they say that these arwah of the people who are in heaven will eventually go and merge with divinity, with the person of God. But these two things are not the main concept or belief of the Muslims. It is hell and heaven both eternal. So now one point more, and then I proceed to the second point. These two beings of human being. The animal being, body plus life, and a spiritual being. They are absolutely independent of each other and full personalities. Now our animal being, it has its own sources of knowledge. The external senses, we get the sense data, and this brain here processes the data, and we infer, and we understand something. Then it is put to memory in this computer of brain. So we see with these eyes. This is our animal sight. We hear with these ears. This is our animal hearing. We think with this brain. This is our animal thinking. The ruh or the spirit, it has its own eyes. It sees without these eyes. It hears without these ears. It contemplates and thinks itself, not through this agency of the brain computer. There are many ayat of the Quran which tell this. فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارُ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ in Surah Hajj. These eyes don't get blind. The infidels, the opponents of Muhammad, Allah's grace and peace be upon him, they were not blind of eyes. They were blind of their spirits. وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. Because the spirit, its abode is our heart. For the animal being, it's a pump which is pumping the blood. But the spiritual being, for the spiritual being, it is the abode that is there, dwelling there. So these spirits can see, they can hear without these eyes and ears. And it thinks. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. Quran says they have hearts because ruh is in the heart. That is the abode. So we have given them the ruh, the qalb, but they are not contemplating with it. This is not this eye, this is not this brain. This is the sight and the hearing and the contemplation of heart, or we may call it spirits. So this is actually the existence of human beings being composed of two elements. The animal, let me quote here a Persian couplet of Sheikh Sadi, the sage and poet, Persian sage and poet. Admi zada turfa ma'junast, as farishta sarishta was haywan. This human being is a very strange type of mixture. In it we have an angel as well as animal. The animal is our animal being, coming from clay. Its desires and lusts, they take us down. But the ruh, spiritual being, came from God, and it wants to be nearer and nearer and nearer to God. There is a pull within ourselves. These two beings, they are at dagger drawn. The animal being, the id or libido, they want to take us to the lusts and pleasures of this world, taking us to the clay. But the spirits, they want to take us high up, nearer and nearer and nearer to God. Now, another diagrammatic representation. Two forms of human knowledge. And here I have quoted a saying of Ibn Khaldun, the great historian and the philosopher of history and sociology. Al-ilmu ilman, ilmu al-abdan wa ilmu al-adyan. Knowledge is of two kinds. Knowledge of the physical bodies, physical world, physical objects, and knowledge of the religions. I've only quoted it here. I don't mean exactly what he says. What I mean is that human knowledge has two sources. One is the animal source, other is the spiritual source. As animal beings, I have written down ilm bil hawas plus ilm bil aql. Sensory and empirical knowledge and knowledge through reason, aql, intellect. These two go to make knowledge of the physical objects, and to this I call acquired knowledge. Man has acquired this knowledge. He saw something, he heard something, this sense data went to the brain, computer, it processed and checked with the previous memory, reached at a new conclusion, and then put it to the memory again. And this way, step by step, step by step, step by step, this acquired human knowledge has now reached a very, very high position. But this can be divided into two. Names of the objects, knowledge of the physical bodies, and number two, philosophy. To try to know the reality as a whole. This knowledge, with our external senses and our intellect, it was creeping with a very low speed, step by step, step by step. Except for the last century, I may say, there has been an explosion, a very big leap, very big leap. But before that, we were going step by step. But human mind, from the very beginning, also tried to contemplate the total reality as it is. And for that, this philosophy came into existence. Now, Quran says that when Allah created Adam and He appointed him as vicegerent on earth, He taught him all the names. All the names. Allama Adam al-Asma'a kullaha. There are more than one explanations of these words of the Quran, but popularly, and I believe in it, it means the knowledge of the material objects. Total knowledge was given, endowed to Adam. And then it exfoliated step by step, step by step. Potentially it was given to Adam. Just like, a seed contains the whole plant or the whole tree in it, potentially. But then it slowly comes up. 2 leaves appear and then go on, go on, go on. It becomes a full tree. So this is the exfoliation of that knowledge of all names which was given to Adam in the very beginning. Allama Adam al-Asma'a kullaha. This is the knowledge of the name which we have now acquired through our faculties of inna sam'a wal basara wal fuad. Sam'a, basar, and this computer, brain computer, which processes the sense data. Through this we were creeping. Whosoever saw for the first time a rock fell on another rock and there was a spark of fire. Whoa! And then he tried himself. A rock striking against the other rock. And there was fire. So fire was invented. First form of energy that human being invented it. He must have been a very big inventor, very big inventor. There was no form of energy before that. And so on and so forth. So this is allama Adam al-asma'a kullaha. Main field of this knowledge is science, physical sciences. Philosophy is not the main field, but it was a necessity with the human beings to have some idea of what is this universe? Who am I? Where from I've come? Where I'm going? What is knowledge? What is evil? What is good? We should know. So this was the urge, due to which the philosophers, the sages, they contemplated. And we have different forms of philosophies and ideologies, etc., etc. On the other side is the given knowledge, revealed knowledge. This is not earned by man. This is not acquired by man. This cannot be got by any person through his own will. No. It is bestowed by God. And the purpose of this is guidance. Guidance. You should remain on the straight path. Don't go astray. You will find, at every step, the path is bifurcating. One is going to the right, the other is going to the left. Which way should I go? So this guidance. And in Quran, in the same 4th section of Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, section 4. In the beginning is mentioned, allama Adam al-asma'a kullaha. And in the end, فَإِمَّا يَاتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Go and take charge of the earth. Now you were created as vicegerent on this earth. But know it, my guidance will be coming to you from time to time. Whenever my guidance comes to you, whosoever follows that guidance, he will have no reason to grieve or sorrow or fear. But whosoever will deny our ayat, our guidance, they will be the people of hell. And there they will abide forever. So this second knowledge is knowledge of religious truths. Knowledge through heart and spirit. This knowledge is not through these ears. The revelation heard by the prophets was not through these ears. It was through the ears of the heart, the ruh. فَإِنَّهُ نَزَّلَهُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ. It goes directly to the heart, not through the intervention of this ear, this animal ear or animal sight. No. It is knowledge through spirits or heart, because these two words are synonymous, because that is the dwelling of spirit. Now these have two forms. One type of revelation, we call it, is protected, and it is immune from error and satanic influences. That is the wahi which came to the prophets. No satans, no jinnis, not even the animal self of the recipient of wahi, of revelation. His own animal instincts cannot indulge here. And this is verbal revelation, recorded in the scriptures, in the books. We believe in Torah, we believe in Bible, Gospel, we believe in Quran, and that is the last message, the final message, the most complete guidance for all times to come for the whole of humanity. So this is protected. Another form of wahi that we may call, this actually, the first one is, we call it wahi jali, very apparent or lightning wahi, which has been coming now because the institution of prophethood has come to an end in the person of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which used to come to the prophets. The other is inspiration. Inspiration. The first one comes through the angel, Archangel Gabriel. He has been bringing this revelation, prophetic revelation, to the chosen people from among mankind. illALLAH astafa Adama wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala alamin. Allah chose Adam and then Nuh and then Abraham and then the progeny of Abraham. And he has been sending his wahi through Archangel Gabriel to each one of them. This is the manifest, we may call it, wahi jali, very apparent, protected, and put in scriptures, in books. The other one is the feeble, we may call it, feeble, a sort of hidden wahi. This is the inspiration that you get yourself, which we call ilham in Arabic. There's something comes from true dreams also. And this form of wahi is continuing till this date, and it will continue till the end of this world. But it is not protected. It can be influenced by satanic influences. It can be influenced by the subject thought of the person who has received it. There can be mistakes in the interpretation that the recipient is making of it. And this is open. This type of wahi comes to animals also. The bee, it got wahi from Allah. And non-prophets, mother of Moses, she got this type of wahi. Acting upon that, he put Moses in the river Nile, and so on and so forth. This type of revelation is continuing and will continue till the end of this world. But this type of revelation for the prophets is protected. Not only the wahi jali is protected, but for the prophet, this inspiration is also protected. No satanic influence can come to it. Now, what the jali and the apparent or the protected or the recorded wahi has given us. Now, it gives us, number one, laws and injunctions, the do's and the don'ts. And the first of the foremost were the commandments given to Moses. God's blessing and peace be upon him. The 10 commandments. The do's and don'ts. Do this, don't do this. Eat this, don't eat this. Drink this, don't drink this. So this is the most important part of the wahi jali, the apparent and the shining wahi, which has been preserved, which has been protected from satanic influences and preserved in the books. And second thing is the wisdom. The total wisdom, which gives the replies to the questions with which the philosophers have been grappling. Who you are, what is this universe? Did it come into being by itself, or there was some creator? If there was a creator, what are his attributes? Is he alone? Or he has assistants and subordinates and such and such? gods and goddesses with the small g. With the capital G, the God has been one. In Hindu mythology, Mahadev is one. Mahadev. But Devis and Devtas are so many. In Arabia, Allah, the God, was one. But Aleha, they had their idols and they had their own concept of the Malaika, that they are also to be worshipped. So, this wisdom, and wisdom is again into two parts. The general wisdom, theoretical wisdom, the philosophical wisdom, and number two, the wisdom behind the commandments. Why this fasting has been made imperative upon you? It has a wisdom behind it. Why these 5 prayers a day? They have a wisdom behind them. Why all these things? So wisdom of the commandments and wisdom regarding the philosophical questions and quests of human beings. So they become close to metaphysics, philosophy, metaphysics. It has connection with the general and the wisdom of Iman or faith. And sociology comes together, the commandments regarding individual behavior and the guidance regarding the politico-socio-economic system that human beings should adopt and enforce. So these are the 2 kinds of knowledge. And they are based on my first submission. Man is composed of 2 beings. The animal being, the spiritual being. And it has 2 knowledges. The animal being is earning knowledge, acquiring knowledge, step by step, step by step. And it has reached to unimaginable heights, What has happened, let me say a few words more, that's all. The tragedy of humanity at this time is that the whole focus of attention of humanity is on the acquired knowledge. It has just discarded, put the revealed knowledge away. No attention to it. Had all this scientific and technological development been supplemented alongside with that, the spiritual knowledge, there would have been nothing bad. But now what had happened is, we have closed one eye of ours. Believe. We don't believe. Maybe. Can't say for sure that there is God. Maybe there is one. But the universe is very much here. We must apply our intellect to understand this universe. We can't say whether there is some human soul or spirit also. Maybe there is some. But the body is very much here. So we have to look after it. We can't say whether there is any life after death. We can't say. Maybe, but we can't say. But this life is here. It is real. So we have to focus our attention to this life. In this way, for those of you who know the word Dajjal and the Antichrist in the West, that big human catastrophe which is going to come. One-eyed Dajjal, according to our traditions. And that is one eye. Allah gave us 2 eyes. The spiritual knowledge and the material knowledge. We have closed one and opened the other to the extent, extreme extent. This is the calamity. Now our knowledge has become destructive. Humanity is fearful at any time. Any accidental war can start and which can wipe out life from this planet. The good old planet Earth. It can happen. Lastly, Allama Iqbal's philosophy is called the philosophy of self, khudi. One of his disciples, he asked him, what's the source of your philosophy? Is it from Nietzsche or Bergson or some other person? Sayyid Nazir Niazi was one of his disciples, so to say. Iqbal said to him, okay, come tomorrow at that time and I will dictate to you. He told us in one of our Quran conferences that I was very glad that the poet of the East will dictate to me the source of his philosophy of khudi, philosophy of self. So I went there very happily. But he said, take out Quran from that shelf. I became frustrated. I thought he will say, take out some history of philosophy book, Quran. And he said, that is Surah Al-Hashr, It is chapter number 59 and the ayah is 19. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Don't be like those who forgot Allah. And Allah, in return, made them forgetful from their own selves. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ. Don't become like those who forgot Allah. And what was the punishment for that from Allah? فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. He made them forgetful of their own self. Now what is that self? Is any human being forgetful of the needs of his animal body? If there is some disease, we run to the doctors. We wash our bodies with soaps and so on and so forth. Who is forgetful of his body, his animal being? So what is that self which human beings forget, ignore? That is that spiritual self. And let me quote finally. We may call it a verse from Upanishad, the Hindu scripture. Very beautiful. Man in his ignorance, man in his ignorance identifies himself with the material sheaths which encompass his real self. Real self is something else within you. And these are the material sheaths, these bones and this flesh and this skin. These are the material sheaths of that real sense hidden within you. But man in his ignorance identifies himself with the material sheaths which encompass his real self. Thank you very much for the kind attention that you have given me.
Ahmed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are starting our question and answer session. As you have heard, Dr. Israr Ahmed has covered a vast area bearing both on ontological position of man and epistemological questions. It's a vast area. He has very briefly touched everything. And now it's your time to question him. I hope you will not needle him, because he's not a philosopher. He is a medical practitioner, switched over to spiritual healing, as I said. as I said, generally. But of course, he's a scholar of Quran. He has studied Quran very intensively, very closely. This is a gathering of multi-religious people, community from different faiths have come here, and we should meet in an ecumenical spirit and try to understand each other's point of view.
Let me start by saying what a delight your presentation was and how clear it was and how much I appreciated it. And there are so many questions I would like to ask, but I'm very aware that there are others who want to ask questions too, so let me just pick one. And that was, I was interested in the way in which you reconciled the story of natural selection and Darwinian evolution, appropriately modified, with the Quranic insights about human anthropology. And what surprised me a little bit is that my impression is the vast majority of Islamic thinkers are very suspicious of the sort of ideological baggage that Darwinian evolution has in the West, and view it therefore with a lot of suspicion and are often very, very critical of it. But you seem to be quite happy to talk about the fact that certainly the animal, human, did evolve from, animals, and it was in some point in that process we were given a spirit. And how do you find that do you find you have a lot of sympathy in the Islamic world for these positions, or do you find that you are often criticized for them?
Thank you very much. Firstly, please note that I do believe in evolution, but not in Darwinian evolution. Evolution is something else, and the mode through which it has taken place is something else. The struggle for existence and the survival of the fittest and natural selection, and that automatically changes one species to another, this is wrong. At every change of species, we need another kun from God. And this, the mechanism of Darwinian evolution has not been proved and not very much liked in the biological areas, in the academia. So every time we have to have a kun, and that change becomes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now actually the damage that Darwinian evolution has done to humanity is because of the focus on the animal being only. Man is not an animal being only. He is a spiritual being also. And that is out from the discussions or studies or quest of the scholars. This spiritual existence has not come through evolution. It is direct from Allah, direct from God. So because I said it is the calamity and the tragedy of modern mind, that we have just shut our eyes from that side. And now, if we are only animals, now we can follow animals. Animals don't discriminate between wife and mother and daughter. Why should we? They don't take the trouble of dressing. Why should we? This civilization has gone down to the animal level because the other aspects are absolutely out of sight. Now, whole sociology, whole thought is focused on the animal being. That's all. So that is the reason why Muslims don't agree with it. But if we have this idea, then these two things are separate. This animal being has come through evolution, but for every change in the species was due to another new fresh command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kun. And so it has happened.
Your interpretation of the origin and the birth and the development of the universe, it was very interesting. And I think very beautifully and logically you weave the creationism with evolution. I have a couple of questions. One is that you talked about three forms of creation: man, jinnis, and angels.
Three forms of self-conscious creation. Yes.
Okay. What is the qualitative difference between these three different forms of creations. And in your view, what different roles have been assigned to them, or what different capacities they have to perform these roles?
The angels were created out of light, and they are, so to say, the civil service, we could call it. They are implementing divine commands. They have no animal existence at all, no lusts, no desires, no id, no libido. But then, human beings, they have been blessed with spirits. But jinns don't have spirits. They are alive. They don't have spirits. Therefore, no revelation could come to them. Revelation only could come to the human beings because they have that apparatus, that ruh, that spirit within them which receives it. The antenna is there, they don't have it. So, vicegerent on earth is man. And he is the only creation of God in which both the worlds, the world of Amr and the world of Khalq, they have come together. Jinnis are only Khalq, not Amr. And the angels are Amr, no Khalq. And here, both have met together. The spirits belonging to the world of command and the animal being to the world of creation.
I'm trying to relate here in this very interesting and for me very instructive exposition that you have made today, that the thought about the body itself, you I think also in some ways refer to as kapra, quoting Upanishad, I suppose, in a way that it's a covering, which is, I think, in a way the Sikhism looks at it. The kapra is, body is quoted, is named kapra quite often in the Guru Granth Sahib. And kapra, or the human incarnation, so to say, is the result of your karmas. Karmi ave kapra, nadri mokh dwar. And it is through the grace, nadar, karam of God, that the moksha, the emancipation,
Salvation.
Yes, salvation, the door of salvation only opens up through the grace of God. But it is through your karma, through your doings, through your actions in your prior births, that you got this human body. And this human body is then considered as one of the greatest blessings which has been given to you, because it provides you the instrument, the sources of energy, as you said, the thinking, the intellect, the ability to reason, the ability to see, to comprehend, acquire knowledge, gyan, and then try and get closer to God. And the biggest suffering is, where we start or begin, is the suffering from being separated from God, the Atma, the spirit, being separated from God, the process of individuation. And in this process of individuation, the thing that comes up as the main obstacle in our ability to reunite with the eternal spirit is the so-called home, or which, once again, I go fully with you when you say that surah has to be called surah and not a chapter, because home, I think people have tried to translate it into I amness or id or ego, or I was even impressed by the use of word khudi by Allama Iqbal. And that is the big problem, that home dhirag rog hai. Home is the greatest malady. Daru bhi isma hai. Daru, the malady, the remedy, also is in this. Because if there is God's grace, then it will put you on the right path. So what I was trying to figure out and understand is two aspects here. One is that how do we envisage, how do we sort of comprehend the role of the physical human body as such, and the role of our ability to make choices which has been given to us by God, in other words, human will, because that is where home comes in. So if you could elaborate on that for me.
I'm thankful to you, brother, because you have given an exposition of your own, which is in consonance with what I have said. You have used the very correct word, instrument. This body is the instrument. Our ego or khudi or spiritual existence is the real existence. But it has to earn good deeds through this body, or it is earning hell for itself through this body. And this is actually like a horse you have to ride. So your khudi should be strong enough to control the horse, or it will throw you down on the ground. So both these things are necessary, and there is, the hadith of the Prophet, Inna li nafsika alayka haqqan. This body, animal body, has also rights upon you. You have to take care of it, everything. But don't think that you are only this body or animal being. Actually, your actual existence is a spiritual existence.
What have been the reasons for the decline of the Islamic civilization with the basic characteristics that you have presented in your talk? Maybe you will address that in a later subject. But my main concern here in the question is that your talk includes a number, multiple layers of contradictions. That's to say, there's a contradiction or dualism within man that you talked about. But there's also another kind of contradiction or dualism outside of man, between perhaps different civilizations or philosophies or discourses. And since God is a central figure within the Abrahamic tradition, within Islam, it seems that at the end of the talk you were somewhat pessimistic about human destiny. Now, how come that God becomes absent here, although we are in so much need of God, in the presence of contradiction, civilizational contradiction or human contradiction? How come that God does not interfere in order to restore that balance between the two entities that you spoke of?
First of all, let me admit that this is global civilization, but it is, as its origin was Europe. It's European civilization which has engulfed the whole of the globe. Regarding the question, God doesn't intervene. He has created this world, bestowed human beings with faculties, and now it is for them to show خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Man is being tested over here. What you do? So actually this will happen, but that was not the subject of my talk. Finally, we agree, both Christians and Muslims, the kingdom of heaven on earth is going to be established. It will be established. But first of all, we have to return to the basics, because this Western civilization or global civilization you are calling, it has gone deep into our own intellects, our own thinking, our own value structure. Even we are being, subject to the same influences. So Allah will make the truth rule over the whole of the world.
I have a couple of questions about the second part of your presentation on human knowledge. what I found missing in your epistemology is one thing. Your assumption seems to be that ideas generate ideas. I'm talking about the right-hand knowledge of physical objects. In other words, the intellectual sphere is an autonomous sphere. What seems to me missing is the idea of the social construction of ideas. In other words, ideas themselves do not generate subsequent ideas, but philosophy and social science theories are the product of the socio-economic conditions in which they are articulated. Would you accept that position?
Yes.
Going to the left side, then I'll ask the other question.
Actually, what I said was that this acquired knowledge, mostly it is the science knowledge of these physical sciences and then technology, and that is the main subject today. It's the focus of human attention. But because man wanted a total knowledge also, and he needed it, how to behave in this life, and he needed some philosophy. And along with that, I should have added, and I have on that diagram, the social sciences. And you have to generate them, and you have to build them, and then you have to live by them. Yes?
Going to the left side, you have one box, it calls recorded and open revelation. In Islam, I would assume that you mean that open and recorded revelation is contained in the Quran, right?
Yes.
Would you also include hadith?
Hadith
In
on
this
the other
category, or it's in the second box?
Second box,
Which is,
but for the prophets, this is also protected. The dreams that the prophet had were revelation for him. And you know, the inspirations. Because in Surah Shura, we have 3 forms of wahi. مَا كَانَ لِبَشَرٍ أَن يُكَلِّمَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَّا وَحْيًا أَوْ بِوَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ أَوْ يُرْسِلَ رَسُولًا فَيُوحِيَ بِإِذْنِهِ مَا يَشَاءُ. It is not possible for human beings to talk with Allah, except in 3 forms. From behind a curtain, just as Moses had that conversation with Allah on that Tur, and an inspiration directly from Allah, or a wahi coming through the angel. And this wahi is the manifest, the jali, the recorded one. But what is coming as inspiration? That is the second aspect of wahi. And for the prophets, this is also protected. So hadith is, you know, sort of a trayer of that wahi khafi.
Then the other 2 boxes, one is called laws and injunctions, and then the legal code. I have 2 questions about that. As far as the laws and injunctions are concerned, are they permanent, or on the contrary, they are changeable? Are they time-bound? Because, as you know, there is a debate going on right now within the Islamic circles, what is permanent and what is changeable. The other is about the legal code. Is this legal code directly revealed, or is it derived from revelation? In other words, is it a human construction that is based on revelation, or is it directly derived from revelation?
You mean Sharia?
Sharia, yes.
What was the first thing?
The first was is it permanent or
It is
changeable?
permanent, and that's actually connected with the finality of the prophethood. You know, these laws were kept changing. The law of Moses was something else. The law of Muhammad is somewhat different. But when humanity reached its puberty regarding this intellect, then the final prophet came. And this is for all time to come. This is final, permanent, and till the end of this world. Now, Sharia actually is derived from the Jali Wahi, from Quran, as well as from the Sunnah, not Hadith. Sunnah is the practice of the Prophet. And we have 2 sources of Sunnah. One is the continuity of the practice of the Muslims. The companions saw the Prophet and followed him, and then the Tabi'een saw the companions and followed them. So this continuity is coming. This is one source, a bigger source of Sunnah. And the other is Hadith. So these are the two permanent sources of Islamic law, Sharia, Quran and Sunnah. But then there was ijtihad. Actually, I have to talk about this subject when I talk tomorrow about the political structure of Islam. So this ijtihad, that is in changing conditions. When we have new problems, then we have to make ijtihad, keeping ourselves within the parameters of Quran and Sunnah. But we have to frame further laws. So Sharia now has this third element also. And that is why we have Hanafi school and Shafi school, because they have their own judgments and ijtihad. And now Quran and Sunnah and ijtihad, they go to make one Sharia.
I have a question. In fact, maybe I have misunderstood about the case of Talim Asma. Now, this Talim Asma is the name of the things which is on earth, or the names of the God? For us to understand God, to know God, because the basic thing that we have been sent to this world is to know God, to have knowledge of God. So to my knowledge, I knew that Allama Asma here means the names of God, rather than being the names of the things on earth.
Yes, brother, actually when I was talking about that, I said that there are more than one explanations of this. So one is which you are presenting. The other is that the asma and names of the prophets to come. That man has something good in him also, although he will make fasad and there will be bloodshed through these human beings. But you can see there will be Moses, there will be Jesus, there will be Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is another opinion. But my opinion is the one which I have presented. This is the knowledge of the material world. We know something and name it.
Okay. Is the knowledge of material world different than the asma of God, or attributes of God? When we think, because God, in fact, creates things, and then we know the things.
No, this universe is,
because this is connected with the evolution as well.
Is the shadow of only one name, and that is Khaliq, Al-Mubdi', Al-Badi', that's all. But this universe has so many things that we have to know them and we have to name them. Every science has its own terminology. Unless you know that terminology, you can't understand their science. So I think this terminology and names of things.
First, I'd like to also thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to follow Ibrahim's question and your answer to Ibrahim's question, which I think fits into some of the things that you said. If the collective we in this world, if we are going the wrong way, to use collective language, which has been emphasized here, if God is not going to and does not intend to intervene, if indeed, as you also said, we only have, again to use a colloquial language, voices in the wilderness who are advising us the other way, and we therefore cannot be, at this point, optimistic that the civilization's going the wrong way is going to change, then how can we expect the kingdom of God on earth to come about?
When I said God doesn't intervene, I meant from beginning. The beginning has to be from human beings. They have to struggle. God has intervened by sending his prophets, his books, his guidance. That is also intervention. Now it is for the human beings to follow them and to strive to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth, the divine kingdom, the Islamic state. And that is our job. But when we are doing that, Allah will help us. God will help us. So that help will come. But without our own effort and endeavor, It is not going to come. He will not do it for us. We have to start, but then the help will come.
But let me just press a little more, if I may. Again, how can we be optimistic given the present condition of the world that you described? How can we be optimistic that in the human struggle things are going to change? And if I go to the Islamic belief that the final prophet has come, well, then how can we be optimistic that we're going to have other prophets who are going to come to help us? We can't even expect that.
Yes, no new prophet is to come. But we have a concept in Islam of mujaddids, the revivers. And the Prophet said in every century, Allah will send people who will revive Islam and the basic thoughts of Islam and basic teachings of Islam. These are called mujaddids. And they have been coming in every century. So mujaddids will come, and then the divine help will come. And secondly, although we believe that no new prophet is going to come, but Jesus is to come. He has to come again. We believe, just like the Christian brothers, the second coming of Jesus. And through him, actually, this is going to be a global kingdom of heaven on earth. But it will start from among Muslims. At a critical juncture, when the Antichrist appears, we call him Dajjal, then Christ will come himself. He will descend. This is our belief.
So that means that the human agency would be futile somewhat.
Not futile,
because
but they will be crowned by something for help, and this will be another help.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, in Arabia, these are the prophecies of the Prophet. An Islamic state will be established. And before that, an Islamic state will be established somewhere in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Because the prophecy says that the armies will come from some eastern country to establish the rule of Mahdi. يَخْرُجُ نَاسٌ مِنَ الْمَشْرِقِ يُعْتِئُونَ لِلْمَهْدِي يعني سُلْطَانَهُ. So this is going to be a human effort first of all, and then Allah will help. Mahdi will be the last mujaddid, and mujaddids have been coming.
I have another question, which is of a general nature about the type of discourse that you have presented, which is not, of course, novel in Islamic theology. Since Muslims have been discussing that since the Tadween age in the 2nd, 3rd centuries of Hijrah, especially with the Ash'arite philosophy that you have presented so well today. But there have been other types of philosophy within Islam, such as the Mu'tazilite philosophy, or perhaps Sufi philosophy and theology, and so on and so forth. And this is a historical fact, which I'm not going to dwell on very much. But what I'm concerned about is the type of education that we have in South Asia nowadays, the type of Islamic education that has been commonly referred to as madrasa system. And the madrasa system is based primarily, perhaps, on the type of theological discourse that you have presented. But the madrasa system in South Asia, especially in the modern era, in the 20th century, 21st century, seems to be totally cut off from the concerns of contemporary Muslims. Although there is that balance in a normative way between the physical and the spiritual that you have talked about. But if we discuss the madrasa system in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, in Kashmir, in Afghanistan, madrasa graduates do not seem to understand the modern world at all. They don't even seem to understand such basic Islamic issues as social justice, as an example,
Yes.
since they have no knowledge of the major problems of capitalism and the capitalist civilization, which has become global. And therefore, the question is, if we believe that the normative discourse that you have presented is the correct discourse, but in actuality it is cut off from life, it is alienated from life, then the question is, how can we establish bridges between this discourse and the contemporary needs of the Muslim world?
Actually, this madrasa system was devised to produce legal experts of Islam and the magistrates and judges on the Muslim governments. It has some relation with hadith, but mainly it is fiqh. So actually, we should say this is out of the context, it's gone away. Now we are producing only Maulvis who can lead prayers in the mosques, who can give you fatwa about very small things, that's all. Because when Islam or Muslims degenerated, Islam didn't remain a deen, it became a mazhab. Now, if the Britishers were ruling over here, the law was the British law, civil code, penal code, and so forth. What was the job of the Muslim ulama? Leading prayers and teaching people how to say prayer and how to keep fast, and that's all. And this part of our society has become accustomed to this part of deen only, and that is mazhab, and not Islam. And they are not very much concerned with Quran. So we have to bring about and establish an educational system based primarily on Quran.
So you're saying that the ulama in, let's say, Pakistani society are not concerned about the Quran?
I think that is not included in their courses. Very small part of Quran is included in their courses. They are more concerned with hadith and fiqh.
I think that there is a larger question about the status of the ulama in contemporary Muslim societies, specifically in South Asia. And from what you're saying, that the ulama are facing a major crisis.
Actually,
in
what
terms
happened
of their own Islamic
when
ideas.
the Britishers came to India, now because a civilization, a military power with a scientific background, so we were so much obsessed with it that the ulama, they decided to go to the corners. They thought we can't, have a confrontation with this civilization as this knowledge. So they content them to corners so that at least name of Allah, name of Muhammad, and name of Islam can be preserved. And that is why, in India and Pakistan, Islam, at least as a religion, is very forceful. Not as a deen, not as a system, social system of life, and just social order, no.
So are we saying that the modern Muslim states that have come after colonialism have failed in retraining Muslim ulama in an Islamic way?
Yes, definitely, I agree. Because actually, after the end of colonialism, so to say, it has not ended up till now, but so to say, the end of colonialism, the people who came to helm of affairs, at the helm of affairs, rulers, they were all trained by our colonial masters. They were brainwashed. They were they had accepted the Western civilization. And they are ruling. So actually, the colonial rulers are ruling till today by proxy.
But we have an example of Iran where the ulama are in power.
Yes.
If we look at the Muslim scene in the contemporary.
That's the only exception. And that was actually a political movement was hijacked by the ulama.
So the Shiites are better than us.
They have proved that they have more power and endurance and the spirit of sacrifice. And this tragedy of Karbala has persisted in their hearts. So this, to lay down, the virtue of laying down your life, it is within their bones.
What I do see here is a very altruistic underlying theme of the emancipation of the whole mankind as a part of the evolution or the development through the development of the individuals. And I'm trying to relate this to a pluralistic setting. And I'm wondering that how would we conceptualize or envisage such a process taking place? Would it be only through the acceptance of this, or would it be through a process of bringing the various thoughts together and somewhere emphasize and find a paradigm which really moves the humanity forward, the totality of humanity forward? And in that process, I see that the role of change and acceptance of change will be a decisive factor. Now, how do we relate this entire concept in its more global setting and possibly the global future? Because I mean, if you look at the demographics, I think there is a considerable amount of problem inherent in the whole kingdom of God emerging.
Yes, Brother Nidmal, truth is one, and the true deen is one, and we have to propagate it. But for that purpose, we have to emphasize not the dogma or the creed, but the system of social justice, which is the need of all humanity. For 300 years or 400 years, humanity is in search of some just social order. From kingdom, kingship, and these lords and barons and etc., there was French Revolution. But it culminated into capitalism. So there was another revolution, Bolshevik Revolution. It has failed because it was not divine guided, the straight path. In reaction, you go to other extreme. So that was extremist. So now again, we are back to capitalism and liberalism and secularism and so on. But there will be another step in which humanity will go. But for that purpose, at least in some one sizable country on the globe, we must establish that socio-politico-economic order of Islam so that people can see with their own eyes, this is Islam. What we have been fighting against was something else. This is Islam. So that is the answer to all the questions humanity is facing today. And that is why now America, when they say we are not against Islam, they are saying true. They accept Islam as a mazhab, as the religion. And it comprises of three parts. Some creed, or dogma, beliefs, some forms of worship, some social customs, what to do with the dead body and how to solemnize the marriage and how to celebrate the birth of a new baby, etc., etc. Well, you can have any belief. You can come to America, buy a synagogue, turn it into a mosque. You can come to America, buy a church and turn it into synagogues. We have no objection. We are ready to embrace you, but not the political socio-economic system. That is ours. It will remain ours. We don't accept any divine revelation or divine guidance regarding these things. Now, what was the point of difference between USSR and the Western world? For half a century there was going Cold War, but what for? The political socio-economic system. Otherwise, the Russians and all these countries, Eastern European, they were also Christians. And Western Europe and America was also Christian. There was no fight of creed or something else. It was this system. So whosoever is gaining by this capitalistic system, he has to protect that system anyhow. And he will have to go to any extent to guard their interests in this world. And they fear Islam only as a political socio-economic system, not as a mazhab, not as a religion. They can keep all the religions at par in America, yes. You can make a Gurdwara, you can build there, go there. Hindus can build temples and go there. Whatever you do. But nothing doing. Our secular, liberal, and then our capitalistic system.
Can I just come back to this chart for a moment and perhaps pick up on something which we have touched on, and that is there are many texts in the world, many texts, many books in the world which people claim to be infallible. You know, conservative evangelicals such as George Bush and others would talk about the Bible in those sorts of ways. Certain Jews would talk about the Torah in those sorts of ways, the Bhagavad Gita, Tripitaka, and so you can go on. Can you just clarify, how do you know which is the book which is protected and immune from error and satanic influence? How do you know which book has that status?
That has to be a historical research. Quran throughout 14 centuries has remained as it was. Bible has not. There were revisions, changes. You know, Ahmed, he had this subject, specialized in that subject. Regarding Torah, the Jews also believe that the real Torah is no more there. It was destroyed or buried in the tunnels under that Temple of Solomon in the year 587, when Nebuchadnezzar had invaded and demolished that temple. So I can say this thing about my Torah and Injil only. Regarding the scriptures of the Indians, they are not sure who were the authors of the Upanishads, who were the authors of the Vedas. They are prehistoric type of things. But Quran, is in the light of history, full light of history.
One other question about this chart, and that is, do you have any sympathy? There are some in Europe who argue that the rise of science, the rise of scientific learning, needed to emerge from a theistic and religious framework. Because, of course, it's the assumption of faith that the world is ordered, which makes it possible for people to investigate it. So, do you have any sympathy that actually you need religion to create the possibility of science?
I think this hypothesis is historically wrong. You know the days of the Muslims, the Abbasids, they had the background of Islam and science, mathematics, all these things, medicine, they flourished. We got those things from Greek sources and from Indians, developed them, and we had the background of belief in God and religion. And we transferred it to Europe through the universities of Cordova and Granada and Toledo. But because, the rule of Pope in those days in Europe, which had prohibited science and philosophy both, that had created an anti-religious sentiment among the masses. So when science started developing, it had that anti-religious color in it. That is the real cause.
At superficial level, there seems to be a contradiction between science and religion. But I think what you were saying was that there is a continuity. The fundamental, foundational, philosophical assumption of science is that life in the universe has an order. And this is a religious truth. So science built on that metaphysical idea and tried to find out the nature of order in the universe. So all the developments in philosophy of science, particularly in physics, and I think Dr. Abdul Salam had this notion, and he was hammering it again and again, that whatever developments in modern physics are taking place, they are fundamentally derived from the notion of order that we inherited from religion. So that was probably,
Yes,
is that true?
that's exactly right, yeah.
So in that sense, there is no inherent contradiction between science and religion. But I want to go back to...
But I never said
Sure.
there is contradiction. These are two things side by side. I never said there is contradiction.
There's a difference between saying side by side and saying that
are same.
it's built on that. There is a continuity. There is a qualitative linkage between the two.
No, but only one truth, that there is order in this universe, doesn't go to make it religion. The belief in one God, creator, that is the basis of it. And he is the guider to the right path.
That's why modern physics is going to the idea of trying to find a unified principle in the universe. Anyway, I want to go back to this whole, to the chart. That is the framework which is very lucidly articulated, and I really compliment you on that. My question is, you divide the human knowledge, what you call religious truth, into two categories: protected, which is immune from human error, that you describe as revelation, prophetic knowledge that we received from the prophets. And the other is the knowledge that we gain from intuition, dreams, illuminations, and ESP. And also, going to the right side of this chart, from knowledge from reason. My question is it possible to come up with a set of ideas independent from guidance from revelation that is capable of guiding us to the truth? Is it possible to reach the truth by sheer human reason? One. Secondly, is it also, when we say that the whole idea is to find the religious truth, is it possible to find this truth through several paths? For example, the whole idea of interfaith religious dialogue that is taking place in the West is that the fundamental religious reality is the same. And there are different paths, methods to find that truth. I'm not saying that it will not be subject to error, but I just want you to entertain the possibility, just the possibility, that there are certain other ways to find the truth, independent of prophetic guidance.
Actually, to know God, there are so many ways and paths. But to know the path, straight path, that is by revelation only. And this revelation has been coming time to time. فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى. And according to the mental or intellectual development of humanity as a whole, there was a development in that also, till it reached its zenith in the person of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have to accept for the right path this revelation which has been given by Allah for the humanity, all of humanity, for all times to come. As you know, that Quran says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. He is the only prophet who claimed that I have been sent for the whole of humanity. Even Jesus said, I have come to find the search of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And Quran says, all prophets came for their own nations only. إِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا وَإِلَىٰ مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا, etc., etc. He is the only one who says, I have been sent for the whole of humanity.
So you do not that I can live a moral life on the basis of secular ethics?
Yes, you can live. It will be basic human morality. Basic human morality. To speak the truth, not to deceive anyone, not to rob, not to steal. These are things which Quran says they have been imbued in human nature. Alhamaha fujuraha wa taqwaha. This nafs, it has been imbued with this. But the path, straight path, what to do, what not to do, that is something else. That comes from the prophethood.
What would you say is the hope for us Christians and Jews in your view of the future?
the final shape of humanity is going to be Islam. When Jesus Christ comes, he will say, I was not crucified. This crucifixion is a fiction. And I had told you that the law of Moses will remain. So Christianity and Islam, they will merge together into one religion under the leadership of Jesus. Because according to the Quranic philosophy, whenever a messenger was sent to any community, if that community as a whole rejected him, it was annihilated. This happened to the people of Noah. This happened to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And this happened to the people of Ad. They are not mentioned in Bible, but in Quran. They were ancient Arabian nations. Samud, to the people of Shu'aib. Then, Pharaoh and his armies were drowned because they didn't accept Moses as their prophet. Jesus came as the messenger for Jews. And Jews as a whole didn't accept him.
But Judaism does contain the idea of the Messiah is Judaic. So Judaism, in a theological sense, does not deny the phenomenon of the Messiah. And throughout history, and I'm talking about modern history, there have been a number of messiahs who have claimed that position. And one major one in the Ottoman Empire in the 17th century was, I forget his name now, Shabbatai ben Tzvi. Shabbatai ben Tzvi in the 17th century claimed that he was the Messiah on the basis of Jewish foundational ideas. So I don't see your point, because in Judaism, the idea of the Messiah is not absent at all.
No, it is there.
It is still there.
But that Messiah come to them. They didn't accept him.
Jesus.
So yes, Jesus, that was the Messiah. And he claimed, I am the Messiah.
Right.
But they didn't accept. So the seat is vacant up till now. So they are waiting for their Messiah. And someone will stand up to someday and claim to be Messiah and lead them to, the greater Israel and so on and so forth. Anyone can come. And that will be Antichrist.
I think also we are too far away from the basic subject. Now, you said that we have two forms of knowledge.
We have?
Two forms of knowledge.
Yes.
Okay? But what about the source of knowledge for Islam? I mean, what sources that Islam accepts that true knowledge comes to us?
Both knowledges are true.
No, I mean,
this is the knowledge of this universe. And universe is the creation of God.
so is one source.
And that is why all the physical phenomena are referred to in Quran, ayat of Allah. They are the signs of Allah.
Yeah.
So actually, Quran to us is the word of God. And this universe is the work of God. And there's no contradiction between the two.
So they are same.
Yes.
In one sense. One is coming from Kalam, the other one is coming from...
Because I said, Allama Adamul Asma Kullaha from God. So this all scientific advancement is from God.
Okay, we are now again to the subject. Thank you.
لا إله